So Mark Weisbrot, he said that in 2013 he thought that Venezuela would not degenerate because he thought that that Maduro would unify the exchange rate, which would get rid of the parallel currency market, the black market in currency. He said Francisco Rodriguez, who is a opposition economist, by the way, also said the same thing as him, which is that, Venezuela is probably going to be okay relative to Greece because it can print its own currency. All it needs to do is unify the exchange rate and get rid of the problem of the parallel market. And his explanation for why this is bad is that Venezuela was facing a dynamic in which there was a significant parallel market for the dollar, and the price of the dollar in that market was rising. This increased inflation by increasing the price of imports, right? Because importers are going to charge you more because your currency is in reality worth less than what you have it pegged at. The inflation in turn drove more people to buy dollars, which pushed the black market price of the dollar up further. If such a spiral is allowed to continue, it will eventually lead to hyperinflation. So it's like a kind of simple explanation of something very simple that the Venezuelan government should have done to sort of try to fix the situation in the long term, but they stuck with the short-term measure that they had implemented for far too long. So I mean, people who say like the Venezuela crisis was inevitable are kind of bullshitting. There was not any significant sanctions until 2017. It doesn't mean it's okay for the US to sanction Venezuela. They're making it worse. They're making it harder for Venezuela to fight its crisis. But there were many mistakes, right? The situation in 2013, as he outlines here, was not bad at all. Venezuela had more than 36 billion in international currency reserves, a sizable account surplus of 11 billion. It was not facing any imminent balance of payments crisis. So yeah, there was no reason for thinking that the government would ride its overvalued fixed exchange rate all the way to hyperinflation, which happened about 4 or 5 years later. Are US dollars used in the black market in most countries? No. The black market for currency, what that means is that it's a black market for currency exchange, not a black market for buying stuff generally. Like in Peru, for example, there's no reason to, you can freely change soles to dollars because it's a very stable currency relatively. There's no problem. There's no reason to have dollar reserves, practically. In a country like Venezuela, though, you want to swap your dollar reserves on the black market because you simply get more. In 2016, a team of economists from the Union of South American Nations, which is unfortunately now practically defunct, it was like a sort of left alternative to the OAS, went to Venezuela and proposed a plan, which included a unification of the exchange rate and other measures that could reasonably be expected to stop the acceleration of inflation. I was part of that team, as in Mark Weisbrot was part of that team, not me. It was not clear at the time whether the government would adopt the plan or not. And they didn't, obviously. Like, Maduro had the advice that he needed. He knew what the problem was and he knew how to stop it from getting worse, and he didn't do it. He fucked up. You can't look at this and say that he didn't fuck up. You can't just say US aggression, like, that's all well and good. Yeah, there's US aggression, right? But you can plan for US aggression and it's not going away. Cuba does it as well. That's what Cuba basically does all the time. Yeah, the embargo is bad. It has a terrible effect, but it's a constant that you can plan around. And they do, quite successfully considering the circumstances. So up until 2017, there was diplomatic pressure from the US. There were individual sanctions that did kind of bleed into being more broad in certain circumstances, such as when they were against important government positions in the economics ministries, oil company executives and stuff. But it wasn't like so bad that it was unmanageable. So yeah, there's the Venezuela lesson for you. It's all well and good to be, I'm against imperialism, I'm against this, and I'm against that. But you need to look at the failures like this and understand why they happen rather than just blindly saying it's only the USA. Yeah, the USA is hugely guilty here. They're trying to fucking starve Venezuela. They're making it harder to deal with the crisis. But the crisis is still there, and even if it might not have been avoidable, it would have been far less severe if they had taken steps to deal with it.